Hello, I am Tyler. I'm the Youth and Family Director at Edinburgh United Methodist Church. Welcome to UME. We are going to talk about what we're talking about. That's funny. What we're doing in our Zoom Bible study right now is what I'm going to be talking to you about so you can get up to date on what's going on. Um, Tomorrow we're gonna have our first actual Zoom meeting, but I kind of had some stuff set up ahead of time, and I want to get us so we're staying in that line because it'll affect the other stuff we're doing later on this school year. So I want to catch you up on what it is we're doing. So we're gonna spend a few weeks going through the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament. That is before a lot of the prophets and a lot of the going back to Jerusalem occurred after the two kingdoms separate and then go into exile. So this is returning to Jerusalem. Okay, so we're going to talk about Nehemiah, and we can't talk about Nehemiah without talking about Ezra. Okay, so Ezra, to get us up to date and make things the easiest for everyone. Okay, Ezra was the leader sent back to rebuild the temple. So in Ezra, the second verse says this. This is what King Cyrus said of Persia, that was who was overseeing and ruling over the people. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and has appointed me to build a temple at Jerusalem and Judah. Any one of his people among you, may his God be with him, and let him go to Jerusalem and Judah and build a temple to the Lord, the God of Israel, and the God who is in Jerusalem. So, Ezra leads the people to go and rebuild the temple. And see, there's a problem. You can't have just the temple. You gotta have structure. You have to have a way to protect the people. So that's where our good buddy Nehemiah comes in. And one of the reasons I want to start off with Ezra is because at one point in our history, Ezra and Nehemiah kind of went side by side together, like as one book. But then as time went on, as they're canonizing, they separated them. That requires much deeper knowledge than what I have. The biggest thing that I want to get to is within the first two chapters of Nehemiah is we have a guy, Nehemiah, who is the cupbearer of the king. That same king that sent people out. He is disturbed and he's upset and he's sad. When you go through a trauma, you live in that trauma, you deal with that trauma, and sometimes that comes up later on in life. And so the trauma we're dealing with is the people of Israel were put into exile. And so now we're at a time where they're going to go back. And so Nehemiah is aware that people have been sent back and people are going to try to rebuild. And so he longs to be a part of that. Okay? And he gets a report back of what's going on. And essentially, what he is told in the first chapter is that things are going well, but they could be going better. I.e., there's no way for us to protect ourselves and keep us secured without help. And so he prays. In this deep sadness, he prays and asks God for help, asks God for guidance. And most of all, he repents. And he repents for not only himself, but for his ancestors, for the people that were sent into exile in the first place, and for what they've done wrong. And we never really think about those things, right? Like there are things that our parents, our grandparents, great grandparents, some troubling things that have been done over the years that we don't think we have to own or deal with, but there are some things that we have to own and deal with, even though they're not our fault that they happen, but we are bearing the consequences for that. And so I love that in the first chapter it ends. The last line in the first chapter is, I was cupbearer of the king. Now, the cupbearer, if you guys don't know, is very important. See, cupbearer is there to bring drink, or mostly wine, to the king. And the cupbearer normally will drink himself. He'll make sure the king sees that he is okay, and then thus he is then able to proceed. Now, if you're really good and tight with the king, the cupbearer, as the cupbearer, he'll eventually trust you, and whatever you hand him, he knows you're good. But if you let's just say if the king were to pass away from being poisoned, the cupbearer is first to be blamed for good reason. So in this time, he is sad. Right? He gets this report, he prays, then he's just kind of in this dark place, maybe a depression, if you will. And so the king is like, what's going on? Like, how are you? What are you dealing with, basically? And so he tells them Well, first he prays. He prays quietly to himself, and then he says, I'm worried about my people. I'm worried about the land that was once ours, and you know, if you're willing, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go and help and see what I can do. And the king just says, how long will you be gone? So it doesn't give a time frame of in this moment. I'm sure we'll get that later on. But what I like about this is that he says, well, this is what I'm going to need. And so he is ready with, I'm going to need you to write a note basically to all of the different areas he's going to be traveling through that he is allowed to pass safely, and also materials. He's going to need materials to fix it. And so he's asking for it up front. I'm going to need materials. And so people aren't going to be happy about this. And so he's asking for it, and he gets it because the king trusts him. The king has a kindness and compassion for him. And so we end the chapter with him, Nehemiah, him, as in him, is going through and he's inspecting the gates. He's inspecting the fences and the not fences, the walls, sorry. And he's inspecting them, and it's just, they're all bad. And they all have to be fixed. They all have to be dealt with. And so what he does, because at first he doesn't tell people what he's doing there. There's people that are there that are kind of ruling over the area, and he doesn't tell them what he's doing there. But he tells the people, not the ones that work for the king, but the people of Jerusalem. He tells them what he's going to do. And he says, we're here to rebuild the wall. We're here to create structure again here. We're here to create community once again. We're here. God has sent me to rebuild and to create new, essentially, in this area. And so once they find out what's going on, of course, those who are in charge say, are you rebelling against the king? And I like it says, this is, verse 20. The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have not shared in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it. What I like about this in this moment is he's telling the beings that are there on behalf of the king, you don't have authority here. We do. This is our place. And what we have to understand, guys, especially those of you out there who don't understand why there's stuff still going on in the Middle East and why there's war, is because in Jerusalem, everyone wants that, because that is what's been promised to them. If they feel that's the right thing for them, they're going to go after that. But they have to start somewhere, because right now Jerusalem is in a bad place. Okay, so what I want you to do before we meet on the 15th is just pray over what is it the thing that's getting in your way. Okay, what is the thing that is hard on you right now that you can't move past maybe, or what's something that feels super difficult? What's something that maybe feels like it's like miles away, and pray on that. Okay, because Nehemiah doesn't think he'll be a part of the rebuilding, essentially. He thinks he's just here to be the cupbearer of the king. That's all he is. And he eventually becomes depressed over it. So what is it, that thing that you really want to be a part of, this thing you really want to go towards, that feels like it's impossible to get to? Okay, and pray about it. And if you want help praying about it, reach out. I'd love to pray with you. And also, most importantly, guys, understand that God does have a plan for you. Nehemiah didn't understand what God's plan for him was, and he was upset and distraught, and the king gave him exactly what he needed. The king noticed what was going on in his life, and like the Heavenly Father King, the creator of all things, he is paying attention to you. He knows what's going on with you, he's there with you, and he wants to help you. If you'd like to know more and dive deeper into this book, Nehemiah, and be a part of this growing community that we have here at UME, join us. We're going to be here every single Sunday at 7 p.m. I can send out a Zoom link if you reach out to me and request one. As long as you're a teenager, you're going to be welcome. That's the best way to put it. I will go ahead and keep posting videos about this as we're going through it, though, so that way you can stay engaged, especially if you missed it, because I want to make sure everyone gets the chance to hear and know what we're doing. Nehemiah 3 on the 15th of September. Be there. And if you're not, well, I'm sure I'll be posting here soon. So, peace be with you. Blessings. We'll talk soon.